Hey everybody, we're back from our field trip to Stan Mackenzie's, and we filled our bags with fruit, inevitably came home with a few trees, and we finally got the opportunity to taste test a Morton Citrange. So this was the last one on his Morton Citrange tree, and I was very happy he gave us the opportunity to try this fruit, and we can actually compare it directly to another citrange called Rusk. So Rusk Citrange, I believe, is it a ruby blood orange and trifoliate orange cross? I want to say it's that, whereas a Morton Citrange is more of a Washington navel and trifoliate orange cross. I will update that if I'm incorrect and post it here instead, but that's what I believe these are, and you could tell these are two very differently sized fruit. And as we get into this, we'll be able to tell there's a lot more things different between these than just their size and appearance. But going through this, just based on our initial impressions, we can tell that Morton is a much larger, thicker fruit. It kind of does resemble more a navel orange. Now this particular one has a bit more marking, a bit more discoloration, and that's okay, but there are prettier specimens that look a lot more like your typical grocery store navel orange. Now Rusk is a bit prettier between the two. This one looks a little more presentable on the shelf. Both of these, as a lot of trifoliate hybrids have the tendency to do, because of their pubescence, they seem to attract a lot of dirt onto their fuzzy skin. So they tend to get a bit discolored sometimes, maybe just depending on weather conditions and other things. But you just give them a nice scrub and you bring out that color. But Rusk is a very pleasantly colored fruit and a very attractive tree. It loads up with these beautiful, bright orange fruit. And we're catching these both, I guess, slightly early in the season here. But these were picked now in early November. So good to know that these fruit can ripen a bit earlier, at least here in the Carolinas. So more reliably in North and South Carolina. I imagine the further up the coast you go, you might have some challenges fully ripening these, but we will be evaluating some fruit that are a little underripe for some of the varieties that we've gotten, including the citranderins and some of the citramellos. And I find generally for some of the varieties that they're actually more preferable slightly underripe, or some of them it just doesn't make any difference at all. But we'll find out for these just how much of a difference that may make. I have had Rusk Citrange before, so we're going to be referencing our past taste test and seeing if we come to any different conclusions, just because this was a while ago, and this was before we had this refined score sheet made. And Morton, this is the first time, so I'm more excited about Morton, and we are going to try it first. So we're going to give this the cut across and find out things. Well, you know what? I'm getting too excited here. Let's weigh this first. So, we know this is a big fruit. Let's find out exactly how big. It's got some good weight to it too. It's dense. Yeah, 247 grams. So that is a large fruit indeed. And Rusk coming in at 116 grams. So I'd call that a medium fruit. They're both appreciably sized. You know, there's nothing off-putting about the size. Now we can get into some of the other aspects here. I can actually scratch this too before we get into things. The zest on these, I noticed something interesting when I initially scratched Morton, and we're going to find out again. It smells a lot like a navel orange. More so than, I want to say, most of the hybrids smell like their normal citrus parent. So like the citramellos, a lot of them do have that grapefruit and trifoliate smell, but it's a bit more balanced. With the citranderins, kind of similar thing. Those might bias towards mandarin actually, but this definitely biases towards navel orange. I smell navel orange more than I do trifoliate orange. We'll just get a little bit of the Rusk too to compare. Yeah, that's interesting. You get more trifoliate in here. It's actually not bad. It still has a really pleasant orange smell, actually, but less than the Morton does. The Morton's a bit stronger. In terms of taste, though, let's get this cleaned off. See, we're just kind of getting into some of this right here. Might as well, but the zest on the Morton is not bad. Very similar. You still get a little trifoliate kick, but it's not nearly as bitter as you would expect from a trifoliate cross, especially. You get a little more as it kind of sits in your mouth, but that's not bad. And now for the rusk, just getting a little off the top there. You know what, kind of similar thing, a little different taste. But in terms of potency, it's not bad. I'd say those are both, would I wager to say medium quality on these? I might just say these are medium quality. Same for rusk. All right. So these are both pretty good, just in different ways. I do prefer the Morton. You know, give it a little +1 over the rusk. I do prefer the Morton zest a bit better. So now we can continue cutting this Morton here, which I'm very excited to see the inside of this. All right, let's get a smell of that. Oh yeah, lots of orange smell coming out. Ooh. It just pops open like that, and there's no seeds. That's shocking. Wow. This kind of looks like C35 from the inside, but more orange colored. That is beautiful. It smells good. It has no seeds. That immediately passes the seed test because, as far as I could tell, it has none or just about none. I can't see any yet. Wow. That looks really good. And it's at least moderately juicy. There's a lot of juice in there, but it didn't come kind of dripping out. In terms of that peel on there, I have a feeling peeling these is probably like trying to peel a navel orange. It's got that really thick rind. Not quite as easy to peel as like a clementine at all. So peelability is probably similar to a navel. And wow, yeah, I hope that's good because it smells and looks great. So there we go. We have our seedless Morton there. Now our rusk. Get that all the way around. And there is our rusk. Seedier, of course. Actually slightly deeper orange color. Pleasant smell. It is orangey and you get a little bit of that trifoliate smell, but it does smell nice. And yeah, quite a bit more seeds, of course. So this is definitely at least fairly seedy. Got a pretty medium amount or more. So that could be off-putting to some people, of course, but that's more typical of these trifolia hybrids here, where a lot of them are seedy like that. Which they're still very good for juicing, but that's obviously a barrier when it comes to fresh eating. So Morton may have the edge over rusk when it comes to fresh eating, just in terms of seeds, let alone anything else. Say medium to many. Okay, and peelability, I mean, this is probably another one where it's like, You kind of could if you gave yourself a little bit of a head start with a knife, but I'd say it's like similar to a navel, maybe +1. It seems like it'd be even harder than Morton. We're not going to get too sticky and all that, though. I'm thinking we're looking ready to do a taste test about. I mean, these are also both fairly juicy fruit. I mean, these are like, they're looking very juicy. Well, not very, very juicy. I wouldn't put them at the top of the scale like a Sacaton, or even Dunstan gets pretty close, I believe. But these are probably equally juicy for their sizes. Morton obviously just looks even more so with all that flesh there. So we're going to get the rusk off to the side, and I'm not going to delay this Morton taste any longer. Really excited to get that there, wow. So look at that. That is a nice slice. Kind of reminds me of when I was trying C35, but it looks even better and it's even bigger too. So yeah, that smells like it's going to be good, but let's see. We don't know till we taste it. It's not bad so far. It's actually more sour than I expected. But it's got a lot of orange flavor in there. And then just a bit of grapefruit. Trifoliate flavor is very limited. And you can see I'm biting into the pith and everything. As a juicing fruit, this would be excellent. Because you barely get any weird pine flavors or anything like that to begin with. And when you bite into these fruit like this is typically your highest risk for contracting those off flavors or getting those resins. So I'm biting pretty deep in here. Oh yeah, you get a lot of orange flavor. I could see why people consider this one of, if not the best citranges. I think so far, that's the best citrange I've had. Which maybe isn't saying much. Typically, I've always preferred citranderins over citranges. But Morton may take the lead. This may be one of my favorite. If not, it's going to be fighting for my favorite of the 50-50 Trifolia hybrids. There's some others with smaller percentages that are a little better, but this is surprisingly good. That kind of caught me by surprise there. So it's very sour. Bitterness is very little. Sweetness, it does have some. So it's like somewhat sweet, but you just get so much sour in there, it's kind of overpowering. Trifoliatness is low. Again, sometimes that contributes to grapefruit flavors. We've noticed that with other fruit. But for this one, it tastes a lot more truly like you cross the navel orange, maybe 60-70%, and then the rest was grapefruit. It's a really pleasant fruit. That's going to make a really good juice. We are definitely juicing this later, and we can give you guys some feedback on that in a different posting, but very surprisingly good. Edibility, this is one of the first 50-50 hybrids where I think this is approachable by normal people. Which sounds funny saying, but when you're used to all these hardy citrus and these citrus hybrids, we kind of get desensitized to how weird some of these fruit could taste to someone who's used to just a navel orange, just a clementine, just a red grapefruit. If they're not used to all these different citrus varieties and all these different flavors, sometimes these fruit can be a bit overwhelming. But not this one. This one, if the person at least likes sour or tart things, there's not really any off flavors to deal with here. It has enough of that orange smell, that orange aroma, everything. Yeah, I can't even say do I capture grapefruit in there? You might get a hint of it, but honestly, you mostly get orange. It's like orange, slight bit of grapefruit, slight bit of the pininess from trifoliate, but predominantly navel orange. So flavor, I would say like sour navel orange. A little bit of grapefruit. And the aroma, same thing, orange. Then you got kind of like a little bit of the, well yeah, we'll put grapefruit. And then, let's see. You can always argue there's like a little bit of lemon in these too, funny enough. Like you kind of get little hints of that in the smell. So we'll just say lemon, floral, and pine, because those floral and pine notes are usually from the trifoliate, but those make up the smallest percentage of both the flavor and the aroma. Uses, though, I would argue you could use this for fresh eating if you like tart things. It'd probably make a good marmalade because the zest wasn't bad. I mean, I don't know how people, I'm sure people make decent marmalades with larger oranges and navel oranges. I know sour oranges are, of course, used in marmalades, so this could be right up that alley. Juices. I mean, the list goes on, really. You could use this almost in all the ways you'd use a normal orange. It's just sour. That's it. It's sour and it has a bit of grapefruit flavor. So, etc. Okay, and we might as well do the Brix and the pH now before we go into Rusk, which unfortunately I know is going to be a downgrade from here. But Rusk isn't terrible, I'm sure we'll get into it with this one. I'm sure we'll taste what I've tasted before with it. It just has some pretty big limitations that Morton actually doesn't really have. At least not to the same extent. Now, we already know that's probably going to measure a 3 on here, and we're probably going to have to do a more detailed pH testing with our actual pH meter, just because most of these tend to read around a 3. A lot of these hybrids are just sour enough where it's hard to break above that 3 mark. So we'll wait on the pH there. In the meantime, let's get a Brix reading. So we have our Brix refractometer there. We'll get a nice little bit of juice on that lens. Ooh. I think that's enough. I don't want to waste too much of it because it's quite good. I'm going to be enjoying that after the video. And that looks like an 11.5. So we got an 11.5 on the Brix. And the pH is looking pretty much exactly like a 3. So, no surprise there. This is just easier to do on video. Off video, I do have to squeeze these into a small cup in order to insert the pH meter because it has to reach a certain level to measure it. But for field testing, that just tells us this is sufficiently sour. But we're going to get our Morton off to the side now. And let's try a little bit of the Rusk. So we already know about the juice and the zest, which so far not too bad in those scores actually. But we're going to see if what I remember is correct. Rusk is a more bitter citrange. It has good flavors and good aromas in there, but it does have quite a bit of bitterness. So let's find that out one more time. That's not bad. You get a slight bit of that bitterness. A little more than Morton. I might take another slice and try again. I think this is actually better than the last time I had that. Because so far, I'm detecting a lot less bitterness than I did the first time. Okay. So we're going to try another slice and just confirm my suspicions here. Wow, okay. Interesting. So now, I'm a bit conflicted here. Not to say between these two, Morton's still a clear winner. But that was better than I expected. The thing about this is now it just has like a sour, orange, kind of lemon taste to it. Very slight bitterness. But a lot less than I tasted the first time. So now I don't know if the first time I tried Rusk, if it was overripe. Or if there was something different. I mean, I still got these fairly ripe. I'd say at least above 90%, maybe 95%. But picked at this time of year versus I want to say the last time we tried one, it was December or January. So it was a bit later. There was already some freezes or some frosts. Maybe that influenced the flavor? I'm actually not sure if it's growing conditions related or year to year. But in this taste test, that wasn't nearly as bitter. I know, I think it was Sweet Alabama Homestead. There's another citrus reviewer who reviewed Rusk recently, and we both agreed. I mean, these are normally very bitter fruit, but I can't argue with the sample that I have here. I'm going to taste a couple others, but if you see on the score sheet at the ends that these are still reading not that bitter, I didn't find any bitter fruit then. So I'm going to test that with my wife too and see if she picks up some bitterness. But Rusk surprised. I mean, it brought its best to this review today. So it was very sour. It had little bitterness. Maybe not as little as Morton, though. Probably still give it a +1 over Morton in terms of the bitterness. Sweetness was pretty low. Not non-existent, but pretty low. Trifoliateness, I'd still say it's kind of higher just in terms of the aroma and the smaller size and the seediness, things like that. I'd say it's moderate. It's not that bad, though. Again, Rusk is still one of the more desirable citranges. One of the less desirable ones would be like a Troyer citrange, which we've done a review on. It's kind of like sour, but a little more insipid and has more off flavors, and it's a smaller, still seedy fruit, kind of things like that. Whereas Rusk is definitely an improvement above those. So far, not bad, though. I mean, these are two of the best citranges, and I'm so far thoroughly impressed. I'm actually slightly at a loss of words because this one was supposed to be worse, and this one just kind of blew my mind. This one was surprisingly good. Edibility, I'd say, is... I mean, for the normal person, this is probably still like a moderate to low. You can still use this as a juicing fruit and everything, and that'll make a very good orange aid. And I know people make marmalades with Rusk for sure. And I could see Rusk making a good marmalade too. So definitely both of these have a lot of potential in terms of their uses. But yeah, in terms of flavor, I mean, you just get like sour orange and lemon predominantly. I'm not sure I pick up a whole lot of other crazy flavors there. Yeah, wow, I'm even like biting into the pith and everything. Still not getting the bitterness I got that first time. Maybe I'm desensitized, or maybe that's just a better fruit. But I did try and select the best fruit when we were picking off Stan's trees. I mean, Stan's trees did great this year, I think. From when I've seen him last year, and I think the year prior, I mean, they were loaded up with huge fruit on a lot of them. You know, nothing particularly different, so whatever the weather conditions were this year for him, which I imagine were similar for us, kind of drier at some parts of the season and a lot of rain like midsummer. The citrus seemed to be happy enough with that. They did great this year, so no complaints. The aroma, it's kind of similar to this, minus the grapefruit. You don't get as much as of that nice, like, floral, fruity grapefruit smell. Can't say you get as much as the lemon either. It's kind of just like a trifoliate smell with more orange. So we'll figure out how to phrase that specifically, but it's just a nicer smell than a trifoliate orange. So it has more actual orange flavors and orange smells in there, but you still get a bit of that interesting aroma. Yeah, it's not bad though. Not super pungent. That goes for either of these. But okay, so that takes us through everything for the Rusk. We can finish this off with a pH test, which, surprise, surprise, this is probably going to read under a 3. I don't think any of these are low enough to be a 2, but they're low enough to not read above a 3 on these. Okay, so we got that off to the side, and now we're just going to reset our refractometer here, and then we'll get a reading on the bricks. But so far, these fruits seem to be scoring really well. Oh, that's no good. It's actually try to get as little residue on the lens as I can, so we're just reading the juice. Okay, that looks like a pretty good sample there. Nice. So we are reading, wow, believe it or not, that's reading exactly the same as Morton. If not slightly lower, but it's so close where it's basically both 11.5. And the pH does look to be reading right around a 3 as well. Looks very similar to our Morton there. So both of these are acidic, and both of them have a surprisingly good bricks. The way we classify them, I mean, the maximum score is usually when they get above a 12, just based on things we've seen and things we've tasted. And these are both near the top of, I guess, like that threshold there. So they both scored very well here. And this review was a little more positive than I expected it to be, at least for Rusk. Morton, I wasn't sure if this was just internet hype or not. People still have mixed feelings about this fruit. Not everyone's going to like it. But in my taste, and I'll double check with my wife and see with her normal taste buds if other people would like this kind of fruit. But I think this fruit's a lot more approachable than many of the other ones I've tried. I actually want to taste one more just because it was that good. And I am going to juice the rest of this. I'm going to make a good like orange juice. Obviously a little sugar added just because they're so acidic. Drinking it straight up is kind of like drinking lemon juice or sour orange juice. But let's see, just one more bite there. Yeah, that's enjoyable. You just get little slight off flavors, similar to grapefruit. Again, little piney notes here and there. But it's really good. And in terms of ornamental appeal, Morton is such a big fruit, and the foliage on this tree is so dark, because we have a bunch of these crafted out in the field right now. They're very attractive trees. They produce huge fruit that tastes good, and being a citrange, this is probably hardy close to 0. I'd say at least 5 degrees, if not lower. That tends to be typical of a lot of citranges. I mean, it varies, of course, but citranges are fairly hardy. Not quite as hardy as citrandrons, I believe, but pretty close in some cases. A lot are similar once you kind of reach that point. Once you're approaching 0 degrees, kind of really picking through things there. But when you consider everything that goes into the Morton citrange, this is an awesome fruit right here. I mean, if you had to pick 2 citranges, just based on my limited taste experience here, I could recommend both of these. Rusk a little bit more for ornamental, but in terms of both ornamental appeal and edibility, really using the fruit that you're growing, Morton is awesome. I mean, I'd love to have a giant like navel orange tree in a colder zone, and these are the kind of fruit coming off. I mean, you can make an excellent orange juice out of these. It's still really good. All right, so enough sampling the fruit. I think we're ready for the scores here. So we're going to post those right now for your viewing pleasure. And keep in mind, these are subject to change both in the future and just based on what we've seen in this video. I might have tweaked some things off camera if there's anything I missed, and I am going to test the pH a little bit more thoroughly off camera as well. But I hope you guys really enjoyed this one. I sure did. Big thanks to Stan McKenzie for letting us try this fruit and giving us this opportunity just while our plants are young. I'll be real excited when they're old enough to pump out big fruit like this one. I think we still got a couple years for that, but I really appreciate having the opportunity to taste these and share that information with you guys as well. So hopefully that helps you make a more informed decision. And maybe a lot of you will be running out for Morton Citrange right now, and I say good luck because they are very hard to find, and as you can tell, they don't propagate by seed very well. At least from what I'm seeing, there's no seeds in there. So this is definitely one that has to be grafted out, and I'm thinking my trees aren't too big, but maybe I'll graft out 5 or 10 of these if possible and have some available for anyone interested. But this is an exceptional hardy citrus. I think it's going to rate really high on the scale. Flavor doesn't contribute as much as all of these other things. The right balance of sourness, sweetness, how big the fruit are, how easy are they to peel, the seeds, all those measurements that contribute towards a fruit being closer to dessert quality, I would think. This is definitely going to rate higher on the scale, so I'm also looking forward to seeing the results, as you guys just did. But I hope you enjoyed as always, and I will see you next time.